Out! Everyone out! Now! Run, you stupid bastard, it's going to explode! Okay, let's dive right into this terrifying scene. These frantic, chilling words echo from the snowy wreckage at Munich Airport on February 6, 1958. It's just a moment of sheer panic in the freezing dark, but it triggered one of the most intense and honestly controversial international investigations in aviation history.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to meticulously unpack a heart-stopping historical tragedy and the incredibly complex, fiercely debated investigation that followed right in its wake. We're looking at the Munich Air Disaster. This is an event that literally wiped out a generation of sporting talent and ignited a geopolitical blame game that dragged on for over a decade.
So you might be wondering, how exactly did a routine charter flight, piloted by elite veterans mind you, turn into one of the most debated and controversial tragedies in sports history? It's a story of youthful triumph that was abruptly transformed into a bitter, high-stakes struggle for the truth. Let's look at the facts.
Section 1. The Busby Babes, the greatest team on Earth.
To understand the immense stakes of this investigation, we really have to look at exactly who was on this flight. There were 38 passengers in total on board. This included 21 players and staff of Manchester United, along with 11 of the UK's best-known sports journalists and a few other passengers. Under the management of Matt Busby, this team of incredibly young, exceptionally talented players had just secured a major European Cup semi-final victory in Yugoslavia. I mean, they were absolute global superstars, right at the peak of their incredible powers, heading home in total triumph.
And they were traveling in absolute luxury aboard a British European Airways Airspeed Ambassador, which was affectionately known as the Elizabethan. And at the controls, you had two highly experienced former Royal Air Force pilots from the Second World War, Captain James Thain and co-pilot Kenneth Raymond. Seriously, you couldn't expect to have a better, more qualified crew flying the most famous sportsman on the planet.
Section 2. 3 faithful attempts. The tick-tock of disaster.
Now, because the plane lacked the range for a direct flight from Belgrade to Manchester, it had to stop in Munich to refuel. But getting back into the air, well, that became an agonizing ordeal. The pilots were actually forced to abort their first 2 takeoff attempts. They experienced engine boosting past 60 on the first run, and then the port engine went completely off the clock on the second. The root cause here was the aircraft's Bristol Centaurus engines. They were highly prone to boost surges at high-altitude airports like Munich. Inside the cabin, that jovial, celebratory mood we talked about, it abruptly altered to a quiet, silent dread. The tension was just palpable.
So, after returning to the terminal, a station engineer named Bill Black gave the pilots a critical piece of advice. He assured them this surge was actually a common phenomenon and laid out a simple 3-step manual workaround. First, retard the surging engine slightly. Second, reduce power. And third, advance the throttles to full power much more slowly. Armed with this procedural fix, the crew made a fateful decision to try one last time.
Then let me tell you, Captain Thain was under immense pressure here. Air traffic control informed them that their takeoff clearance would expire at exactly 2 minutes past the hour. The time right then? Exactly on the hour. They had just 2 minutes to get this massive aircraft airborne before their window closed entirely, which would mean this world-famous football team was grounded in Munich.
So, they initiated the third takeoff roll, utilizing that slow throttle technique. Co-pilot Raymond was waiting for Captain Thain to call out 119 knots. That's the speed required for liftoff, but just before they reached it, the plane suddenly lost velocity right before hitting V1. Now, V1 is the absolute point of no return. Basically, once you hit that speed, you simply do not have enough runway left to safely stop the aircraft.
Section 3. Tragedy in the snow. The point of no return.
Because abandoning the takeoff was mechanically impossible at this point, the heavy Elizabethan careened right off the runway, tore through a perimeter fence, and smashed into a house and a fuel shed some 300 meters beyond the tarmac. The losses were absolutely staggering. Out of the 38 souls on board, 23 people perished. This was despite the incredible heroic efforts of goalkeeper Harry Gregg, who actually crawled out of the wreckage and repeatedly went back into the burning debris to save survivors. 8 players died, including the legendary Duncan Edwards, who passed away days later. The co-pilot, Kenneth Raymond, also succumbed to his injuries. In an instant, one of the world's greatest football teams was essentially wiped out.
Section 4. The blame game. The fight for the truth. Now, with surviving Captain Thain facing relentless press scrutiny, the tragedy immediately transitioned into an international search for a culprit. Enter the man at the center of the German inquiry, Hans Rachel.
Rachel was the West German chief accident investigator and a former Luftwaffe pilot, and he arrived on the scene just 6 hours after the crash. We really have to keep the geopolitical context in mind here. It's a few short years after World War II. You have a prominent British aircraft crashing on German soil, plunging a British government and a West German government into an incredibly tense situation where absolutely everyone was treading warily.
Reichel quickly built his case against the pilots based on the physical evidence. Examining the wreckage in the dark, literally having to borrow lighting equipment from a local news crew, he found 8 centimeters of snow on the wings. But crucially, beneath that snow, he discovered a rough layer of ice frozen firmly to the wing surfaces. He noted that the only parts of the wings free of ice were directly behind the engine propellers. So, combining that with the 50-meter tire tracks plowing off the runway, Reichel concluded the plane never got airborne because the crew failed to de-ice the wings.
However, Captain Thain firmly and immediately pushed back in his own defense. As he stated, "My personal feeling is that there must have been a large quantity of snow built up at the end of the runway." Thain introduced a completely different mechanical explanation for that sudden drop in speed at V1. He argued it wasn't drag from iced-up wings that doomed them, but rather the physical resistance of thick slush dragging on the aircraft's wheels.
This right here is the absolute crux of the entire controversy. Reichel's theory relied on thermodynamics. The plane had just descended from 25,000 feet where the air was negative 25 degrees Celsius. So, he argued the wings were supercooled, meaning the light snow falling in Munich instantly turned to ice on contact. But Thain's defense countered this with operational facts. The runway temperature was 0 degrees, he had literally seen snow melting into water on the wings, and crucially, he testified that the wing de-icing heaters were left on during their descent, meaning the wings were warm, not supercooled. Just when Captain Thain seemed to have the technical, logical answers to refute the ice theory, Reichel and the German inquiry prepared to introduce a controversial new piece of evidence. This unnamed evidence would keep Thain on the ropes, shifting the inquiry from an objective investigation into an adversarial trial. And it triggered a bitter, exhausting, decade-long struggle for Captain Thain to finally clear his name.
Which leaves us with this final, profound question. When disaster strikes, do we seek the complex objective truth or simply a convenient place to lay the blame? The heavy burden placed on Captain Thain really forces us to reflect on how quickly our human need for immediate answers can overpower the methodical search for facts. What do you think really brought down the Elizabethan? The debate continues to this day. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the facts.
Thank you for watching the Flight Decoder. Subscribe for more authentic aviation investigations. Like this video, share it, and leave your thoughts.